Our president is going to Europe for this climate summit. But before that, we got word this morning he is heading to the Hill. He's trying to convince the progressives to vote for infrastructure, even if he doesn't have the votes for the reconciliation, because the squad is Squad said, no, we got to vote for both of them together. Do you think that there's a chance they would vote for infrastructure before he heads out?
It's not looking good for him. The progressives are still insistent that they want to attach the reconciliation package, the so-called human infrastructure, which also includes illegal immigrant amnesty as well, just mind you. But I don't think they have the votes here. They still want to connect those things. There's still moderates like Manchin and Sinema who will not vote for that. And look, even if they got the bipartisan infrastructure package through right now, it wouldn't mean much for what Biden wants to message at the COP26, because there isn't really a lot of climate-related issues in that infrastructure package. It's for the most part, infrastructure. It's not their Green New Deal stuff. So it's worth noting that Biden's going to go there empty-handed, with a lot of rhetoric, with a lot of empty promises. And by the way, I'm going as well with another group of Republicans, because we need to be expressing the more rational environmentalist approach that I think we need to take.
You know, usually if it's a Democratic president and unified control of the government with the House and the Senate controlled by Democrats, you would think that the opposition to a big program like this would be from the Republicans. But actually, the opposition is within the president's own party. And you got to say that Joe Biden brought this on himself, because about a month ago, he said, you know what? I listened to the progressives, and even though the infrastructure, the $1 trillion thing, was pretty much a done deal in the Senate. They passed it in August. He said, OK, the progressives say you can't vote on that until you vote on this gigantic $3.5 trillion deal. So, you know, it's a mess, but Joe Biden invented it.
Yeah, that's right. And look, Joe Biden has to understand that he's dealing with socialists, and socialists are inherently greedy, right? One of the main tenets of socialism is to take other people's money. It's called greed. And they're greedy in legislation as well, because they think that, yeah, we like all of these things, but it would be much better if we held you hostage and had 10 times the number of things and 10 times the number of things on our wish list. And that's how they act. I mean, it's very childlike. It's very irresponsible. I think we have to be careful not to do the same kind of things when we're in charge. But it is tanking their agenda. And it's honestly unclear to me where they go from here. Those negotiations are still ongoing. And Republicans need to come into this with eyes wide open as well. You know, it would be nice if we could just vote on infrastructure. Right. But these things seem attached at the hip with the reconciliation package. That seems inevitable at this point. I want to point out to the American people how easy it would be right now to pass an infrastructure bill. The Senate voted unanimously to simply use COVID money that hasn't been spent yet and allow states to use that for infrastructure and disaster mitigation. We could all vote for that right now if only one person named Nancy Pelosi would actually put that on the House floor.
Yep. Congressman, so yesterday the AG was in the other chamber in the Senate testifying before Congress about his dealings with that letter that came from the National School Board Association. And now the House is launching an investigation into the dealings there. What can you tell us? Because I know the good folks of Texas in our home state are upset about this, because it seems like the Department of Justice took a political document and used it as the basis to target parents.
Well, it doesn't seem that way. It is that way. That's exactly what happened. You know, this news broke a little while ago. I think what's new is Merrick Garland coming on the Hill and testifying and getting grilled, as he should be getting grilled. What you also should mention is that the School Board Association that initially wrote that letter has retracted it.
Right.
They've retracted the letter, because even they were like, you know what? We went a little too far here. This language, it's just not correct. There's no violence. All right. There's angry parents. I'm sorry, what school board has never dealt with angry parents before? Stop acting like this is anything new. But what is new is what they're trying to teach in schools. What is new is the CRT curriculum. What is new is small children having to wear masks. And parents are really sick of it. See, their patience was already worn thin because the schools were closing and they had to fight with teachers' unions to get their kids back into school. And now this. So parents have a right to be mad. And this gaslighting that occurs from people like Merrick Garland or Barack Obama and says, this is all just trumped up culture war stuff, that you guys are just reading too much conspiracy theories on Facebook joke right now. You guys are all dumb.
Yeah, don't believe your eyes.
They want to paint you as a bunch of rubes. They want to paint you as a bunch of crazies, and they want to paint you as violent. And see, that's actually where it gets really bad, because that's what Merrick Garland is doing. He kept saying that in his testimony about, oh, we're just looking at threats of violence. What threats of violence? Name one. Name one incident. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. They're trying to intimidate parents out of this. And my message to parents has been, look, it's just words. It's just intimidation tactics. They can't do anything to you, and you should double down and keep doing what you're doing. Let those school boards know how you feel.
Well, these hearings can be long, and if our viewers at home didn't watch the entire thing, here is a portion of it. This is the AG defending the memo.
Senator, I think all of us have seen these reports of violence and threats of violence. That is what the Justice Department is concerned about. It's not only in the context of violence and threats of violence against school board members, school personnel, teachers, staff. It's in a rising tide of threats of violence against judges, against prosecutors, against secretaries of state, against election administrators, against doctors, against protesters, against news reporters. That's the reason that we responded as quickly as we did when we got a letter indicating that there were threats of violence and violence with respect to school officials and school staff.
You know, Congressman, as we look at what's going on in the Commonwealth of Virginia with the gubernatorial election, if Glenn Youngkin wins and beats Terry McAuliffe, you know, one of the things that the parents down there have said is, you know, they are motivated by that FBI memo, which came from the National School Board Association. And that's why the National School Board Association apologized, because they don't want their fingerprints on a loss in Virginia.
Yeah, that could be it, honestly. I think that's not outside the realm of possibilities. There's a lot of parents in the Northern Virginia area that traditionally vote Democrat that there's a really good chance that they'll vote for Glenn Youngkin in this Virginia race. And it's entirely because of the schools and what Terry McAuliffe has said. And he said repeatedly, over and over again, as parents, you don't really have control over your children's curriculum. And he's doubled down on that statement many times. Just recently put out an ad trying to bring it back a little bit. But he doubled down on that statement multiple times. We know how he actually feels. And look, Republicans have been saying the sky will fall when Democrats are in charge for a long time, and people just didn't believe us because they're like, and I would see this while campaigning all the time. You know, more moderate voters saying, okay, that's just right-wing talking points. There's no way Democrats actually think those things. There's no way they'll actually do those things. They're doing all those things. They're doing all of them.
You know, Congressman, one of the other issues that the Democrats are completely failing on is the border. We know from our reporting that Border Patrol aren't allowed to do their job. Well, now the administration is setting another standard when it comes to the ICE. They're saying that they can't make pursuits or arrests at schools, hospitals, of doctors' offices, churches, playgrounds, bus stops, parades, or rallies. So just to be clear, illegals have safe spaces from being arrested. Do American citizens have those same capabilities as well, Congressman?
Well, that's actually a great comparison, because we just got done talking about how parents should be targeted because you know they want to protest at their school boards. They should be labeled as domestic terrorists, and we should use extreme language, like talking about threats of violence and increasing threats of violence. So that's how, on the one hand, the DOJ talks about that. But on the other hand, when you're talking about illegal immigration and trying to do interior enforcement, right, the conversation changes wildly. First of all, they don't want them even called illegal immigrants, right? They want them called undocumented persons, or, I don't even know what the new buzzword is these days. Right. It's probably something like angel of the sky, or who knows. But it's a completely different narrative, and it's dangerous at this point, because it's really just increasing the incentives to come across. Okay, so now you know that if you do get across, you probably won't get caught. You'll probably get a bus ticket wherever you want. You might get a court date, you might not. And even with all that, even if you are deported, well, just go to a parade, just hang out, and you'll be fine. They're not going to come get you. I mean, they're basically telling people, look, we're going to stop this inhumane deportation. It's such a disaster. And again, we tried to tell Americans this is what would happen, but people look at you and they say, How could people in charge of our government actually be open border? You're just being extreme. You're being hyperbolic with your rhetoric, Dan. And I'll tell you what, we were right. We were right about everything with these people. These people have become absolute extremists. The Democratic Party has changed wildly in the last decade.
It really has.
And these policies are just an outgrowth of that.
Remember when socialism was brought to the table by Bernie Sanders? We were like, what? And now many of them support it. Thank you so much, Congressman. We appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Congressman.